Sometimes search just feels smart. A query like comfortable hiking boots brings back solid options even when product pages never use those exact words. Or a photo search finds lookalike images without a single tag in common. What's going on under the hood isn't magic, it's vector search. In plain English, vector search is a way for computers to find things that mean the same, or close to the same, even when the words, labels, or pixels are different. Instead of matching strings of text, it matches meaning. Here's the key difference from the old baseline. Traditional search scans for overlapping tokens, keywords, exact phrases, maybe a bit of stemming or synonyms. Vector search turns the content into numbers that capture semantics, then compares those numbers to see what's nearby in meaning. So rather than asking, does this page contain the word boots? It asks, does this page live in the same region of meaning as comfortable hiking footwear? Why it matters is simple and very human. It makes search less frustrating. It helps recommendation systems suggest things that feel right, even when the title or tag is vague. It lets chat assistants pull relevant passages from a company's documents without rigid keyword matches. The experience is more like asking a thoughtful librarian, and less like a word-for-word filter. An analogy helps. Imagine every idea, image, and document lives as a dot on a vast map. Nearby dots are related. Similar concepts, similar styles, similar purposes. That map is called a vector space. Each dot's address is its embedding, a list of numbers that act like coordinates. Vector search is how a system can drop a new dot for a query onto that map and quickly find the closest neighbors. So the simple version is this. Turn meaning into coordinates, then measure distance. That's the entire trick. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, underneath that simple picture sits a practical pipeline that shows how it actually works. Each stage adds a piece to the mental model, and together they explain why this feels so much smarter than keyword matching. Everything starts by generating embeddings. Take raw data, text, images, audio, and pass it through a trained model designed to capture semantics. For text, transformer models like BERT or modern embedding models read the words and produce a fixed-length vector, a dense bundle of numbers, often 128 up to around 1536 dimensions. For images, models like CLIP do the same, but from pixels. Each dimension is a learned feature, not a human-labeled tag, but a statistical pattern the model has discovered that helps separate meanings. 2 sentences about hiking comfort land close together. A sneaker and a hiking boot might land nearby, but a road bike should be distant. Then comes a simple question. How to tell whether 2 embeddings are similar? A common method is Cosine Similarity. It compares the angle between 2 vectors and gives a score between 0 and 1. If the vectors point in the same direction, they're semantically aligned. This ignores raw magnitude and focuses on meaning, not scale. Other options exist, like Euclidean distance, which looks at straight-line distance. But cosine is a popular default because it emphasizes direction, the essence of what the vector is about. If every dataset were tiny, similarity search would be easy. Calculate a score between the query and every item, then pick the best. Real systems don't have that luxury. Millions or billions of vectors make a full scan slow and expensive. So vector databases build specialized indexes to keep searches fast. A widely used structure is HNSW, short for Hierarchical Navigable Small World. Picture a layered map of shortcuts. The top layer is sparse and covers the whole space with broad connections. Lower layers get denser and more local. A query starts up top, jumps across long links to get into the right neighborhood, then descends into the detailed layers to find the closest points. The beauty is that it doesn't need to check every item. It navigates a graph of likely neighbors and finds good candidates quickly. These are approximate nearest neighbors, fast, near-optimal results without combing through everything. This speed comes with a trade-off. The index deliberately skips parts of the space when it's confident the current path will lead to good neighbors. That saves time, but can miss a rare, perfect match on the edge of the dataset. In exchange, query times become logarithmic with respect to dataset size rather than linear. In practical terms, that's the difference between instant and unusable at scale. To see how this plays out, imagine an e-commerce catalog with 10,000 products. Each product description lives as a 128-dimension embedding. A user types comfortable hiking boots. The system converts that query into its own 128-dimension vector, using the same model as the product embeddings. That part is critical. The same model ensures both sides live in the same map with the same coordinate system. Now the index, built with HNSW, is ready. The query vector drops in. The algorithm leaps through the shortcut layers, narrows in on the right region, and surfaces a few dozen candidates. It evaluates their Cosine similarity and returns the top 3. A typical outcome might look like this: Mountain Boot Pro at 0.89 Cosine, Trail Runner X at 0.86, and an unrelated road bike at 0.12 quietly discarded. On a modern machine, that entire process can take less than 10 milliseconds at this scale. Small numbers, big impact. The interface feels immediate. The suggestions feel relevant. There's another knob in that process that matters for real systems. Many vector databases allow a parameter, often called something like num_candidates, that controls how many items the index pulls into the shortlist before doing the final exact scoring. Raising that number often improves recall, meaning fewer good items are missed at the cost of a bit more latency. A typical pattern is to fetch, say, 50 to 100 candidates when planning to show the top 10. It's a simple way to balance quality and speed. Pause on the mental model for a second. A natural language query becomes a point in a high-dimensional space. The dataset items are points in that same space. An index like HNSW gives a fast way to walk the space. A similarity metric turns geometry into a score. That's the whole loop. Put differently, semantics are being turned into geometry, and geometry is easy to compute. There's something quietly astonishing here. A paragraph about hiking comfort gets translated into numbers that behave like coordinates. Then, with a handful of arithmetic operations, a machine finds neighbors that feel right to a human. That's a rare intersection of math and meaning that deserves appreciation. It's worth contrasting this with keyword search in practice. Keyword systems excel at precise control, exact match, field filters, Boolean logic, and explainable scoring based on term frequency. They struggle when language drifts. Boots that don't hurt on long trails may not hit a product page that says ergonomic footbed for day hikes. Vector search handles that paraphrase gracefully because the underlying vectors sit near one another even though the phrases don't share vocabulary. The trade is that the results are fuzzy, semantically right but less literal, and the scoring is based on model behavior rather than transparent term counts. Real systems often blend both worlds. A product site might first filter by category and availability using traditional indexing, then apply vector search to re-rank the remaining items for semantic relevance. A support chatbot might use vector search to pull a handful of likely FAQs, then pass those to a language model to craft an answer with sources attached. A video platform might use embeddings across audio transcripts and thumbnails, then combine the vector score with watch time signals for recommendations. The connective tissue is embeddings, consistent numerical meaning that can travel between components. A natural question: where do these embeddings come from, and are they trustworthy? Embedding models learn from data. Text models learn from vast corpora of language. Vision models learn from image-text pairs. They're good at general patterns, but they can encode biases or just miss the nuances of a specific domain. A legal knowledge base, a medical archive, or a specialized research field often benefits from domain-tuned embeddings. And because the shape of the space depends on training, changing the model later shifts coordinates. That's called drift. It can be subtle, so versioning and periodic validation matter. A simple sanity check helps before indexing anything at scale. Pick pairs that ought to be close, dog and puppy, and pairs that should be far apart, dog and car. Calculate Cosine similarity. If the close pair scores high, say above 0.9, and the far pair scores low, say below 0.2, that's a sign the model is capturing intuition in that domain. This kind of quick, human-understandable test can catch mismatches early and save headaches later. Another engineering choice shows up quickly. How many dimensions should the embedding have? It's tempting to assume more is better. Higher dimensions can encode finer distinctions, but they also consume more memory and slow down distance calculations. The curse of dimensionality can make neighborhoods less distinct as dimensions climb, unless the model is well trained. For many products, 256 to 768 dimensions is a practical range. The best signal is empirical. Run a sample workload and measure both quality and latency. The index itself has trade-offs too. HNSW is popular because it's fast and relatively memory efficient, and it handles dynamic inserts well. Other structures exist: IVF, product quantization, and graph variants, each with different balances of speed, memory, and recall. In approximate methods, there's no free lunch. Shaving milliseconds usually means accepting a small chance of missing a rare item on the boundary. When the stakes are high and recall must be perfect, exact search or hybrid approaches with tight filters might be preferable. It helps to point to a few concrete applications that benefit immediately. Semantic site search is an obvious one. Users get results that respect context and phrasing. Recommendations are another. Embeddings help surface catalog items that share style, purpose, or vibe, even across categories. Think trail runners showing up near light hiking boots. Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG, relies on vector search to pull relevant passages so a language model can answer with grounded facts. This powers internal knowledge assistants, support bots, and research tools. Deduplication and near-duplicate detection become easier by finding items within a small radius in vector space. Content moderation systems can flag semantically similar harmful content, even when the exact words differ. These are not science fiction demos. They're deployed patterns in search engines, social platforms, and enterprise tools. One more subtlety changes how results feel, how the system combines signals. Vector similarity alone captures meaning, but ranking often blends in popularity, freshness, personalization, or business rules. For example, the vector search might supply a short list of candidates ordered by Cosine Similarity. A re-ranker, sometimes a small model, sometimes hand-tuned logic, then reshuffles those based on click-through rates, inventory levels, or user history. This layered approach keeps the semantics while honoring product constraints. There are, of course, misconceptions worth clearing up. Vector search doesn't return exact matches in the keyword sense. It returns nearest neighbors in meaning, which is usually what people want, but it can surprise, especially at the edges. Not every neural network makes good embeddings. Models explicitly trained for semantic similarity tend to work best, and consistency matters. The same model should generate both the database vectors and the query vector, and while high dimension counts can look impressive on paper, they don't automatically improve results. They need an actual benefit in quality to justify the extra compute. A brief engineering mindfulness moment is worth calling out. There's elegance in the fact that a graph with shortcuts, built carefully, can guide a query through a space it has never seen before and land almost exactly where a human would look. That combination, statistical meaning turned into coordinates, then navigated by a graph, captures a beautiful synthesis of ideas from machine learning and algorithms. Cost and scale are practical considerations. Storing millions of 1536-dimension vectors uses memory. Querying across those dimensions takes CPU or GPU time. Compression techniques can help. Product quantization, for example, stores approximate vectors efficiently, then refines the top results. Sharding across machines spreads the load but adds network hops. The wise approach is iterative. Start with a smaller, well-measured setup. Validate quality with real queries. Then scale the index and tune parameters like graph connectivity, F-construction for index build quality, and F-search or num candidates for query time recall. These knobs shape the balance between latency, memory, and accuracy. Quality assurance deserves a final note. Vector spaces evolve if models are retrained. Regularly sample queries, inspect results, and keep a small golden set of question-answer pairs or product relationships to monitor drift. If a model upgrade changes the space, consider backfilling embeddings or versioning the index so traffic can migrate safely. And in domains with potential bias, audit for unfair clustering and be prepared to adjust or fine-tune. To anchor the mental model one last time, imagine that multi-dimensional map. Texts, images, and snippets are points. The distance between points encodes similarity. Indexes like HNSW build roads and highways across that landscape. A query is a new arrival that needs directions. The system follows the highways, exits onto local streets, and arrives among nearby ideas. Short, reliable journeys at any scale. That's the goal. And the payoff shows up wherever humans interact with information. A knowledge worker can search internal documents with natural phrasing and get relevant passages, not just literal hits. A shopper can describe intention, boots that won't hurt after 10 miles, and see products that embody that intention. A product leader can combine vector search with business data to serve results that are both meaning-aware and aligned with real-world constraints. The blend of context and control is what makes this technology stick. As a final quick walkthrough, the life cycle looks like this. Content comes in and is turned into embeddings using a model chosen for the domain. Those vectors are stored in a specialized index that favors fast, approximate neighbor discovery. A user's query becomes its own embedding in the same space. The index navigates to a handful of promising neighbors, similarity scores rank them, and the application presents the best matches. optionally re-ranked by additional signals, small configuration choices, dimension count, candidate counts, graph connectivity. Tune the system for the right balance of speed and quality. That's vector search in practice. There's no need to memorize every term. The durable mental model is enough. Embeddings place meaning as points in a space, and similarity is distance. Build a fast map of that space. Use a sensible measure like Cosine similarity, and the system can retrieve what you meant at the speed of thought. Once that picture clicks, the trade-offs, accuracy versus latency, nuance versus cost, general models versus domain-tuned ones, become decisions that can be reasoned about, not mysteries. If this helped, a like and subscribe helps make more of these.